it's like any type of technology, they have a purpose, we have to find those purposes. And if you are somebody who does photography to tell stories, and you have a new tool where you can use to further this ability to tell stories, why not to use it?
Welcome to the show, Isidro.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here, and looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, I've been itching. Your interest in some of the things that you've said in some interviews on Urbanaut have got me thinking and scratching my mind a little bit. I love saying scratching my mind, scratching my head. But with that being said, before we get started, go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience and tell us who you are.
Okay, so I don't know how much detail you want, but I'm Isidro Ramirez, and I've been doing photography for, I suppose, something like over 30 years now. I started in 1992, 93. It coincided when I left my hometown of Cadiz, which is in southern Spain. And I moved to Oxford. I was living in Oxford for about 4 years. And that's when I got into photography. What got me into photography was very round way of getting into photography was that I was a bit lost really on what to do with my life. I was a young man. And I kind of didn't know exactly. I was trying to find things to do. That's why I left Spain. It's a long story. But I got a job.
I like those stories.
Okay. Okay, but I got a job as an invigilator in a gallery. It was back then it was called MoMA Oxford. They had this exhibition where I was working there of a French photographer. Robert Doisneau, which is a photographer from the beginning of the 20th century. Very romantic, this typical French romantic photography. Beautiful light, black and white, of course, and lots of almost like cliches of France and Paris. But anyway, I remember seeing those pictures.
Postcard.
Yeah.
Some of those. I think at the early days, they were romantic and stuff like that. But now it's almost cliche because it's the Instagram photo.
We have to consider when those images were made, of course.
It came from some.
And a time as well, a very different time to ours. But those images inspired me to. There was a particular image of this woman washing her hands on a basin with a window. I was backlit. I remember it perfectly. And it's an image that stayed with me. And I was watching it every day because I was invigilating that exhibition for 3 months. So I was every day watching those images. And I thought, I could do this. So I joined a photography course at Oxford Brookes University. And this American technician, I think he passed away now, Mike Skipper. I remember his name, Mike Skipper, taught me the secrets of exposing black and white, the darkroom, and all that little by little got me into photography. Firstly, I suppose I was very in love with the aesthetics and the process, the development, the printing, all that, the darkroom setting. I remember that I would spend hours in the darkroom, like 8-10 hours in the darkroom without even realizing time was passing. Eventually, I decided to join a photography course because I wanted to take it seriously. So that's when I moved from Oxford to Brighton, when I did a course as what was called back then, I don't know whether they changed their name or not, but back then it was called editorial photography. So I was doing a course with people. I remember Paul Rees, Mark Power, Ian Roy, Dennis Duran, a few lecturers that really inspired me to, over those 3 years living in Brighton, to take photography more seriously and to realize that it wasn't just about beauty and light, that actually was something behind the image. And if you dig deeper, you could actually do a lot more than just creating beautiful images. And after 3 years in Brighton doing this editorial photography course and taking it very seriously, like I was a very dedicated student, I moved to London, and then I worked as a commercial photographer for a while. But I wasn't that interested in doing paid work. I suppose that it was quite precarious for me because I didn't have, I don't know why, but maybe it's my character. I wasn't very good getting jobs or networking and meeting people and all that. So I decided to become a lecturer. So I became a lecturer of photography. And to do that, I did a course. I got a job in London teaching photography. After a few years of teaching, then I decided to do a master's degree, which I did at Goldsmith University in London. And this was an interesting course because it wasn't a course that ran in an art department or photography department in a university. It was a sociology course. But it was photography and urban culture. So it was using photography to do urban sociology. So I was very interested in that because I was getting interested in the cities. I was being interested in understanding cities. So at that stage, that course served me very well to introduce me to literature and also writing, because my writing wasn't that good back then. The photography course in Brighton was very much practice, but the master's I did in Goldsmith University was a lot of writing, reading. I think we did about 10 essays, and dissertation, and then also a visual dissertation. So that really got me into the theory part of sociology part of photography, the image and visual culture. So after I finish, am I going, is this too long or you want me to shorten it?
No, it's interesting.
Yeah. I'm just giving you like a little chronology until this moment. But anyway, after doing the course in London, I continued teaching. And then for circumstances in my life, I decided to move to Singapore. That is where I live now. So when I came to Singapore, I continued teaching. I taught in a couple of institutions now in Singapore. My latest and my current job in Singapore is at the LASALLE College of the Arts, which is actually becoming University of the Arts of Singapore this year. So that is keeping me busy and is keeping me in touch with education, which is something that it is challenging, but it's also rewarding. It's frustrating sometimes, but it's also rewarding. So when I came to Asia, Singapore, I've always lived in Singapore, in Asia, always in Singapore. It was in 2012, so it's now about, 13 years, coming 13 years.
Yeah.
I have, I changed my photography and my interests. I started exploring cities around the Southeast of Asia, places that were easy to access, but also interesting for a different variety of reasons. So, yeah, I'm still teaching at LaSalle, and yeah, that's pretty much how we.
I think that's
now. Thank you.
Yeah. I think that's a great kind of introduction into who you are and how you got into photography. I'm kind of curious. Have you always been into art? I'm trying to think of the younger Isidro. You know what I mean? Were you always into art? Were you pulled into that direction, or is it something you always had, or is it just something you found later?
I think I was always into reading, discovering things. Art, not so much. I don't even consider myself. I never introduce myself as an artist. Like I'm proud to say I am a photographer.
Okay.
Some people won't make a distinction. Some people won't make a distinction, but I do make a distinction because I think an artist. This is not my understanding, which could be totally opposed to other people's. But I think an artist is about producing and creating, and I think a photographer is more about harvesting what is already there. Because we work. Not that we are not creative, because I think, of course, to do photography, I think you need to be creative. But we are not producing things from the ether. We are producing things that are in front of our eyes. We are reacting to the real world. And I think there's a difference in that. So if I have to say, if I am an artist, I would say no, but I am a photographer. But going back to your question, if I was artistic, I never picked up a camera until I was 23, I believe. That was the first time I got a camera. I opened it and I put a roll of film inside. And this is probably 1992, I guess. So I never picked up a camera before, and I never had any. I was interested in comics books. I was interested in, graphic. We call them graphic novels in America. Comic books, comics. And I was interested.
Well, it depends on which. There's definitely a distinction between the two.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. I think we have both, but someone correct me in the comments if they're both considered that way. But I don't know. Go ahead.
It's something that I've lost.
I like the pictures.
When I was younger, I would read comic books, and then I would also be a lot into music. I was in a band for a while. I played guitar and I sang in a band. Yeah. But yeah, not very.
So like lead guitar, kind of.
No, I was the lead singer. Actually, I was the singer.
Oh.
And then I would play backup guitar. Yeah. Not lead guitar.
Okay. So you're a rhythm. You're doing the rhythm, and that's awesome.
Yeah. Sometimes.
No.
Maybe not following the tempo. Yeah, I mean, we were kind of.
What kind of?
Very noisy kind of
genre.
Band, Yeah, very noisy.
A noisy one.
Rock. the Stooges and Iggy Pop.
Yeah.
Those kind of things that we would look up to back then. This was back in the late 80s. Yeah. So yeah. That was another life.
What's interesting is I noticed the connection between people that become. I'm going to stay away from the word artist, but I could challenge you. You and I could have a debate on art and photography if they're artist or not. I've had this many times, but I'm going to save that for yeah.
I'm not saying that all the photographers are artists, but it's the way that I see photography, or the way that I pursue my photography is. I don't see it as art. I see it more as a kind of research, maybe more kind of research than art.
You could just. Well, I'll just say my point that I was just going to say, but and then I'll kind of lead into that. But I've noticed a connection between music, in people that become makers. Okay. And so whether we like it or not, when we pull the trigger, we make something. When we hit the shutter button, we make something. And so how we do that or whatever, it could be in whatever style we decide to deem it as. But I can tell you right now, there's a lot of us photographers who have that labeling issue. I hate even calling myself a photographer. I don't even like calling myself an artist. But the reason is I'm just Patrick, who just so happens to know how to use that thing. You know what I mean? And I make some cool stuff with it, So like, and it's really an instrument of my obsession. I call it an instrument of my obsessions, and which I'm always pointing it at something, whether it's abstraction, and I find it as a way of me kind of interpreting the world and kind of cataloging it to understand myself. And so some people would call that art, because painters do the same thing. They're looking at something and using a paintbrush and a canvas and some paints and a little bit more skill than I have in order to make a photograph. But they're interpreting the world as they see it sometimes, if they're classical. But then also, too, they're using it to interpret their internal world, too, the modern movement, But I think it's interesting, that aspect of it. But we'll kind of change gears on that conversation and kind of talk about, you had said something that you were a commercial photographer for a little bit, and you kind of started to realize, and this is an interview that I saw on Urbanaut, that you were like, I'm not really into the commercial aspect of it too much, and that you actually had more of an interest towards art. Or artistic expression of photography more than anything. What was it that changed for you? Was it something that was happening in the commercial world that made you kind of shift the way you thought? Or I want to talk about that little shift for you and what that was all about.
I mean, this is some time ago now, like 30 years ago, but I didn't have a very long career, if you can call it a career, as a commercial photographer. Like when I mean commercial, I'm not talking about the studio advertising or that kind of photography or fashion. Like I was doing features for newspapers, like documentary features for newspapers. Like I did some jobs for the Independent in the UK. Do you know that newspaper in the UK? It's the Independent.
Oh yeah.
So they have the Guardian, the Independent, the Times.
So you were doing assignments.
Assignments, yeah. So they would send me to Spain a few times to do some jobs in Spain. And then I was working for other kind of trade magazines. Like I remember this magazine that was about IT or something. They would send me to take portraits of these very boring IT guys in Geneva or France or Amsterdam. So, it involves a little bit of traveling, and also some jobs will be quite interesting. Other jobs will be very... I remember going to Paris once, and I was photographing this... I can't remember, but it must have been some businessman, IT businessman. He was staying in this beautiful hotel in Paris. Very Parisian kind of, I don't know, rock, Baroque, I don't know, very, very over the top hotel. And, you would go there, you would have to deal with the writer, and the writer will tell you, well, I'm going to do the interview now, because, they would do the interview and the photographer at the same time. And the writer would always take precedence, because it was the boss, or the writer was always the boss, and you were almost like you were working for the writer. But anyway, besides that, I remember this moment when I went all the way to Paris. I spent a couple of nights in there, and I had 5 minutes to photograph this guy, because that's all you got, I mean, it's very pressurized, because you had to get this shot, a very important shot. Without the shot, the interview will be... wouldn't have any images. So it was very important. I found I found it was a very anxious thing to go all the way to spend just 5 minutes with somebody to try to get a picture. But I think, to be honest, what made my career very short is that if you think about the mid-90s, photography changed a lot back then. And I think magazines changed a lot back then. They didn't need this type of photographs anymore. You hardly ever see now those type of features in Sunday newspapers. There was this place in the 1980s and the beginning of the 90s where there would be these features, photographic features in newspapers, where you would see stories. I remember they sent me to do a story about this. The independence sent me to Gibraltar in southern Spain. Gibraltar is a colony, British colony in southern Spain. And I happened to be I was born 60 kilometers away from this place. So they happened to send me to Gibraltar and to photograph this. I think it was this there was this nuclear submarine that had been leaking radiation. And it happened that the city next to Gibraltar in Spain is the highest cancer rate in Spain. So they were trying, of course, they're making, everybody was making
a connection
between with these submarines in the base of Gibraltar, and then this, whether it was true or not, I don't know. But the Independence sent me to do a project about this. So there were quite interesting stories. But I think when it came to the mid-90s, these stories started to disappear. Now, I don't think there's any not many commissions like that. Definitely not enough for a photographer to make a good living doing this kind of work. So for me, it was not just a matter of a decision, but it was a matter of being pushed out basically by a shift in the industry. So I decided either I'm going to be very precarious in my earnings, in my economics, my spending power, or I'm going to be, or I have to change into another type of photography that might not be what I want to do. So I decided to go into education and become a lecturer. And I think that was it. It wasn't so much me consciously thinking that I had to do something different. It's that the industry was changing, and I have to adapt. I had to do something else.
Wow. So were you already exploring kind of a different side of your photography at that time, or were you pretty much just being pulled in every direction? That's how I felt when I was in commercial. I kind of was just bogged down by all the commercial stuff that it was like my other side of my photography, which is the part that I really enjoy, kind of took a back seat.
I had just graduated, so I was trying to make sense of the professional world, try to find a way,
there's a lot of people
trying to find open doors. And so there were lots of people and, lots of photographers as well. So I think that people who have that kind of ease of, that extroverted and they like going to parties. I don't know, they like meeting people and they have that kind of... and I think I'm more of an introvert. I don't so much enjoy the networking and all that. So I suppose that kind of work that you have to rely and you have to find clients, maybe you need a different type of personality. Maybe that didn't suit me. So at the end of the day, I thought, I can be a lecturer and I continue to do my own projects. I will finance my own projects. I will do my own. I will explore my own stories, and I will try to sell them to newspapers or magazines, or try to get exhibitions, wherever it was. but I will try to do it in my own terms. I will make money with education.
I think that's interesting. And so you kind of developed this skill set. You also kind of developed a passion. You said that you spent hours in the dark room, so you knew this was something that was going to be important to you, period. And you found your way into it, and you found yourself at odds with an industry, and you made a shift. And so I'm kind of curious. Okay, so once the demand went down, you're like you kind of decided to go a different direction. What kind of subjects and what kind of things were pulling your attention at that time? What did you start to turn your attention to? What have you been getting yourself into?
At that time, I was looking at lots of German photography.
Okay.
That kind of typologies, very detached, cold.
It is, yeah. I like it though.
You know what I'm talking.
Yeah.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Something that so I ditched my medium format camera. I used to have when I was at university, I used to have this twin lens camera, very basic. Mamiya C330. I don't know if you know those ones. But,
yeah. Do you still have
a 120 roll film camera? No. I don't get attached to equipment.
Yeah.
I sold everything.
Oh.
I buy and I sell everything. I never keep any camera.
You should
never
have.
I don't have that attachment to equipment.
Well, they're
I'm
like.
Sure you can find them.
They're worth a lot now. So, those really good.
Mamiya C330?
Yeah, that stuff is
I don't think that one. Maybe a Rolly Flex, yes.
Yeah, I have a Rolly. But the Mamiyas, the RZ and all those.
Mamiya 7.
Yeah.
Mamiya 7. It's a 6x7 range finder. Sold it as well. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But anyway,
go ahead.
I bought a large format camera because I wanted that kind of look, very still, very thoughtful, very removed. And so I got this Vista. It's a Vista camera. It's a wooden Japanese film camera, quite light. So I got that camera, and then I decided, I'm going to do this project about something that is very quiet. I wanted to find something that was very quiet and very cold and very, very moody. And I thought, I'm going to do this project about cities, because I was born in one. So I'm gonna do this project of cities that are peak during the summer, because there are summer destinations for tourists. But in the winter, they have these months of quietness where they go and sleep. So I went to some cities around Europe photographing this project called Close for Winter. So my criteria to find these places, and this is funny, but of course it had to be a touristy place, it had to be in Europe, and it had to be a place that I could fly very cheaply. So back then we had this, still Ryanair just came out I think at the beginning of the 90s. So they used to offer these flights for £10 or whatever, really, really cheap. So for the weekend, I would go to these places, photograph, and then come back with sheets of film, like 5x4 film, then process them, print them. I bought a scanner, so I scanned them. That kept me occupied. Yeah. So I started doing projects like this, with a large format camera, and that got me into large format photography.
So what was it about the city? Something you said that, you said they're like vessels for ideas, and what were you exploring? How did that? I know you've had some time to think about that. Yeah, what was it about the city that was attracting you? What was it?
Back then when I was doing Close for Winter, I was looking for this suspension, cities that have been left hanging. Because that was my experience as a young adult. Like Cadiz in the summer would double, or the population would double, or maybe 3 times the population. So it was a really lively city in the summer. And then in the winter would be this very boring place that you were always eternally waiting for the summer to come back again. So I explored that feeling. I suppose I was exploring that feeling of boredom, that feeling of emptiness, expectation as well. Things that have been suspended. Like I would photograph. I remember photographing this basketball court that was overlooking the sea, but it was empty. The hood was missing. So it was unplayable. It was a totally unplayable basketball court. And I suppose that when the summer comes, it would have been restored and repaired, and then it will find activity. So I think I was interested in that kind of time stopping. Like nothing is important now. We just have to wait for the good weather to come.
Do you think that was in response? That was your first thing there, and the speed and you were talking about, I had 5 minutes to do a photograph. Do you think, once you made that decision to shift, do you think that was in response to having to always do something and always having to be somewhere and always having to, do you think you just wanted to slow down?
I don't know, but it definitely is something that suited me best, better.
Yeah.
It suited me better as to have the time to reflect. And I think ditching the 35mm camera or the twin lens Mamiya C330 or whatever, and getting a large format photography is also a shift in methodology of how you create images, how you think about images, how you frame images, and how much consideration you have to give an image before you take a picture. Because, I would take, now with a digital camera, everybody goes crazy taking pictures. But back then, I would take a box of 10 sheets of film, maybe a couple of boxes, and I would have 8 dark slides is what you put at the back of the camera with the film, yeah? So each dark slide has got 2 sides, so 2 films. I would have 4 or 5. So I would have 8, 10 pictures for the day. And when you have 8 or 10 pictures for the day, you take your sweet time before you click the shutter, because it's a huge decision,
Yeah.
Not just because of how few frames I had available, but also because of the costs related to processing the film, printing, and all that. But, as a young, not very successfully commercial photographer, it was quite prohibiting to take many pictures. So you get into a different into a different kind of mind frame when you're photographing. It's taking time and enjoying the moment, and definitely not rushing 5 minutes here, go. Never thought about it, but I suppose that it definitely, the slow pace is something that suited me better, and it's something that has served me well in my career, in subsequent years until now. So I've never gone back to do commercial work in that way. Never done it. Sometimes I got offers. I've been always reluctant to do it. So I don't want that anxiety and that pressure.
Yeah.
Performing.
Yeah.
I'm fulfilling somebody else's expectation of what a good image is as well.
Yeah, that is it's a different shift, and it's there's a pace to it. It's this digital world has increased the speed and the production of this craft, and it is a craft, especially to frame an image.
But there are many good commercial photographers, There are many, many good commercial photographers that should be getting that kind of work, because they do it very well. They are very good at dealing with pressure. They are very good dealing with clients. They're very good knowing, also because if you have been doing commercial photography for a long time, people are going to start asking you to do pictures because they already like what you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah. That's how it works.
They know what you're going to produce. They know what you're going to produce. They're not going to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
They're going to tell you, hey, we like your work. We would like you to do this. And that's the kind of place that I respect, that kind of commercial work as well.
Yeah, I do too.
And guys who are very good at it. I'm not at all saying that I don't respect that kind of work. I'm just saying that it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
I have a huge respect for that kind of photography.
So
even wedding photography,
Of course. Oh, well, yeah. I've seen some brilliant wedding photographers.
What is more pressure? That's huge pressure as well, especially when you were doing. I mean, imagine back in the 90s when a wedding photographer has to do a whole ceremony in film, and then pray that everything is gonna count. Everything is gonna be processed and printed, and everything is gonna be okay. So it's huge pressure, huge respect for that kind of photographer.
Well, they love you right now. I'm sure they're gonna return the favor to you in the comments. So I do have a question here, and we're gonna kind of slide into your work here after this. Is talk to me a little bit about how you made this shift. I do see a connection here where you kind of cut out the noise and you started to kind of slow down with your photography and be a little bit more intentional. Talk to me a little bit about what that journey has been like. What are you paying attention to now? And then maybe we could start looking at some of the work that you're doing.
Okay. Right now, I've kind of taking a little sabbatical with photography.
Sure.
Right now. But I can tell you what I was doing maybe. You mind if I tell you what I did from 2000? I just told you what I did for Close for Winter. That was this project that I did in the winter time. Then I did my master's. In 2006, I started doing my master's. And then I became very interested in the limitations of photography. So what are the things that photography cannot do very well? And what are the things that how can we make these limitations of photography into assets, Because with limitations also come opportunities,
Yeah.
So I started looking at things that photography wasn't very good with. And, it's a media that only shows the surface, because, we are photographing light and what is bound, just photographing. We cannot go, obviously there's no time. I mean, there's a very short period of time, but it's not like a video where we have a narrative where we can go from A to B, middle, beginning. And we're talking about the single photograph. Yeah? So beginning, middle, end in a video or film. So we don't have that context. And of course, photography as well as film, we also are limited by the frame. So outside the frame, nobody knows what's going on. So there are all these limitations that I became very interested to try to exploit. So I started doing all these projects about I remember, I did a project called What We Don't See. And it was a project about photographing the places where blind people live or work. And I was interested how photography could be used to illuminate these spaces that normally were not seen by the people who inhabit them. And but at the same time, missing so much of what is being represented. So it's about this visibility kind of opposition. So I started doing that, and then I don't want to go too much into that because I think we're going to be looking at other work later on. But then when I moved to Asia, then I changed the paradigm, and then I became interested more in the city. At least what I've been doing since I moved to Asia in 2012. And I think I was interested in cities. I became interested more in cities again because of my move to Asia. Kind of the Asian cities are very, they had elements that seduce me. They make me look at cities in different ways.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Let's take a look. Let's jump in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
you got me.
So
I'm in. I'm like, yeah? Let's go. Yeah. Okay.
I'm just going to go through some of the images first, if you don't mind, and then maybe we'll be stopping one or two and discuss it. So we have this one that is improvised shop in Jakarta. Then we have these images. This one as well, which is a bus stop in Jakarta. And maybe this one is the one that we can start discussing. Okay, so this one, I think the number of this one is cafe, like a coffee shop, like a cafe. When I went to photography in Jakarta, the first thing that I noticed is, I went to Jakarta without really knowing what I was going to do. Because sometimes I like to just jump into it, go to a city, get a feel for it, and then see if it's something that I want to come back or maybe not. So when I went to Jakarta, I wasn't very sure. I just went for a long weekend. Because living in Singapore is like a 90 minutes flight. So it's very easy to get to Jakarta. So for the first few trips to Jakarta, I wasn't even taking that many pictures. I was trying to get a feel for the place. And eventually, I started noticing things that were repeating all the time. And that was, first of all, Jakarta is a city that is a mega city. I don't know if you know, but I think it's probably the second biggest metropolis in the world. I think Tokyo is the first one, and then Jakarta is the second.
Do you know how many people are there?
I think it's about 30 million people. Yeah.
Wow. So
it's a huge metropolis. Not Jakarta, many cities that, are all joined together now. This mega city. So when I think there are problems associated with this kind of very rapid development of a city. Of course, the urban planning sometimes hasn't been done very well, or hasn't been planned very well. And I think Jakarta is a city with many urbanistic problems. One of the things that I started realizing when I was in Jakarta is that there was people in Jakarta were being very creative in trying to create solutions for shortcomings, rather than lingering in what was wrong with the city, maybe, or what the city didn't allow them to do, they would try to find opportunities in doing things and finding elements that they could transform themselves and improvise. That's why this project is called Jakarta Modest Interventions and Minor Improvisations. So in this case, there's this man that is having a coffee in a shop that is made out of concrete. I don't know exactly the name of this, but concrete prefabricated.
Is it like a aqueduct? Like
structure. It's like a structure to build. Yeah, I suppose maybe it's to do pipes or
a subway, or not a subway, but like a sewer, like an aqueduct or something to go underneath. I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
like an underground. But when they are left outside and maybe nobody collecting them, and they use them as a sitting area for a cafe. And I started finding these things everywhere in the city. So I started to think how people were improvising in Jakarta. So I have this image as well. I don't know. Can you see? Has it changed? Oh, so I have this one as well, which is a bus stop that becomes a cafe. So this is somebody taking over a bus stop because it's a shelter against the rain. In the raining season, you can see the rain, the water, the rainwater on the floor, and how they take over this space to improvise a sitting area for a cafe. And these are things that are very unregulated, so people take advantage of this lack of regulation. Or enforcement, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah. That was my natural question is like the city doesn't stop them, and you just answered it. So that's fascinating.
Yeah. I think there's a lack either of I suppose the regulation exists, but maybe a lack of enforcement, or maybe a relaxed kind of way of being sympathetic towards the population's needs by the governments, by the council. I'm not too sure how this works, but it is true that these things happen everywhere in the city. People take over spaces that maybe don't belong to them, and they transform them to create the spaces that are conducive to an activity that they deem to be commercially important to them, or just convenience. In this case, a bus stop has become like a shelter to keep these wooden planks, maybe for construction. And the one that we saw at the beginning, where a tree becomes a display for a shop as well. So it's a very improvised use of the space and the urban environment in Jakarta. Or even these dwellings, the contrast between the high rises and the more
improvised. Yeah, it's
improvised.
yeah,
architecture.
Yeah.
So I was looking for these things, and the more I walked through Jakarta, the more I would start finding. This is another similar one where there's a bear shop where the trees are very much used in Jakarta for many different purposes. Like sometimes trees will come out of buildings, and you don't know whether the building was there first, whether the tree was there first, or they built the house around the tree, or the tree came out of the house. It's very unclear, but it seems very very unplanned. Somehow, I don't know, something that doesn't seem to be very conducive to have a tree inside your house coming out of a window. Like I've seen in some places in Jakarta.
You use this word improvisation, which is I think is a very good word, but it almost seems like when you talk about the tree, like another apt word for this is adaptation. Like they just adapt to whatever there is, and if there's a tree, then we build around it. If we can't get rid of it, we just use it, and like there's this sense of adaptability, this flexibility. There's a freeness about it that I really enjoy.
As well, it's very creative.
Yeah. Continue. You can
continue. Very creative. It's a very creative use of the urban environment. So I did this project for maybe 18 months. I was on and off going to Jakarta, coming back, and just walking through the city. And the more I got into it, the more places I would see, and it's something that just built up. This was published as a book by the Velvet Cell. There's a publisher. I think he is based in Germany now, but it's out of print now. But it was very good fun to publish it as well. And the titles are quite important to the images because, it tells, the title is very descriptive of what the aspirations of the inhabitants. Yeah. So I always make the title to be not what you see, but what they want you to see. For example, this one would be a bear shop. Yeah. I don't mention trees or anything in the title. It's just very simple. Like this one will be restaurant, yeah, but it's in a bus stop, but they still call it a restaurant. Or that one was called a clothing shop.
Yeah. It's it's coming from my Western perspective. You know what I mean? Those titles. Yeah. Have a clear definition to them. I know what they look like, especially living in Paris. When you think of cafe, I think of a cafe, or a coffee shop. I don't think of that. And so the contrast and the tension between the titles and the images is quite strong for me, and so just coming from my background and where I come from. And so I think that's really, really interesting. Now, a lot of times when you take on a project like this, and it sounds like you were kind of living your research and discovering this place and finding something, was there anything that you were, I think all of these are always a journey of discovery. Was there anything that surprised you in this project, or anything that kind of stood out to you in particular?
I think there's a learning lesson in here that I suppose this is a mirror of, I think this is something that perhaps there's some learning to be done from Jakarta, because I think there's a sense that sometimes cities in the West, we kind of, I don't know, it's a kind of different of philosophy, because we live in cities that we expect them to be perfect and we expect them to be ready for us, like we are not prepared to interact with the city or shift the city or to be creative with the city. I think like you said, if you live in Paris, Barcelona, or any capital in Europe or maybe even America, there's an expectation that the city is there to, or the government and the city is there to serve you and to have everything ready for you. And I think there's a lesson here of resilience, creativity.
Love that.
Yeah. That is very, because when you look at these images, I'm not trying to make fun of these people.
No, I don't get that at all.
It's a kind of admiration.
Yeah,
it's admiration because it's a type of resilience and a type of initiative. They are taking initiative in their own lives. Where I think us in the West, maybe perhaps we are too accustomed to have things done for us. Like we expect everything to be done for us, everything to be ready for us, the city to be already shaped and explained. Where in Jakarta is more kind of, we have this, but maybe we can do something else with it. Yeah, maybe we can transform it and make it better.
I think that's interesting. And what's our definition of better?
I like the creativity and the resilience. I think that's very important. If any lesson I learned is that, and also I love the character of people in Jakarta. I don't know if you've been to Indonesia, but they are very I don't know how to do it, how to say it without sounding patronizing.
Industrious.
Because I don't want.
I think the word is.
But also very. They are very. they don't pretend to be anything but what they are. They're very straightforward, very straightforward people. I like that about people. There's no pretense.
Yeah. Authentic, I think, is the word.
Yeah. I just don't want to use that word because, I don't know.
Well, it does have. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, Yeah. Well, it's just it's when you're not being anything other than it's just a very pragmatic approach. I think that's a better.
Yeah.
I think that's a better word.
They're pragmatic. Yeah, they are ready to. They are ready to take control. They're actually taking control of their lives.
Yeah, I love
they're
that.
Changing their environment to make it better. They don't wait for an urban planet to come and to solve their problems. They're actually doing it themselves. And that's very commendable.
Are you still working on this project? Do you still go back there?
I have gone back to Jakarta because it's a city I like visiting. Actually, it's not a very touristy city because, it's right in the equator. It's incredibly hot. It's dusty, many cars. As I said, it's a city that is far from perfect. But I like the buzz that the city has. So I do go sometimes. Not as often, but I go sometimes.
Well, it's attracting millions of people. What is pulling people there? Is it the industry? Is it? I'm ignorant to the city, so I don't know it.
Well, Jakarta is, I don't know what you know, but it's sinking. Apparently, they have a huge problem because the city is sinking, because they're taking too much water from the ground, drinking water. So the ground is becoming hollow, and then the water is, because of the cavities are getting emptied, the city is slowly sinking. So they have a huge problem that I don't know if they're going to solve it. But they're moving the capital, they're moving the Indonesian capital. They're building a capital from scratch in the island of Borneo. So they're going to move the capital to another place, which that I find fascinating. I think that transition could be a good opportunity to do a project at how photographing Jakarta post being a capital of the nation.
Are they trying to do like
affects the economy?
Is it like a master plan type thing, or is it going to be as improvised? Do you think?
It's totally planned. Yeah.
It's totally
The new city has been built from scratch. It is a kind of reminiscence a little bit of Brasilia, in Brazil, where they did this capital as well. So I imagine, and they did it in the middle. I'm not too familiarized with Brasilia. Maybe somebody can tell me in the comments as well. But I think it was built from scratch, and it's in the middle of nowhere in Brazil as well. And this feels a little bit like that. So I think they want to take the political. They don't want Jakarta to be the political center of Indonesia anymore. So they're going to take it somewhere else. But I think it will continue to be the economical heart of Indonesia. Because Java, which is is the island with most people in Indonesia, and is the most populated island. Jakarta is part of West Java, and then also is culturally is the most is the better known, because Indonesia is vast. They have many different cultures, peoples, religions. But Java seems to epitomize what Indonesia is about. It's kind of
interesting.
It's the most representative culture of Indonesia would be the Javanese culture.
Wow. So you finished up at Jakarta and you shifted into a new project. Talk to me about that. How you kind of this is the Bangkok, right?
Which one? Sorry?
You shifted from this project and started working on another one, which is the Bangkok one, right?
Oh no, Bangkok was before. That's another project I'm going to show today.
Okay.
Bangkok was like the first city I photographed in Southeast Asia.
Okay.
Was in 2014, I believe. I published another book for that one, but it's a book that, I don't know. It's something that you asked me if I go back to Jakarta, if I want to do a project. I told you that maybe thinking of doing when it's not a capital anymore would be interesting, but also there's lots of development in the MRT system in Jakarta. MRT is the underground, the subway, or the subway underground. So they're building the underground. I wanted I wanted to see how the underground affects the commuting lines and how the areas around the underground that goes into the suburbs, how that transforms the suburbs. That's another project I've been thinking of doing, but I haven't had the opportunity to do it yet. So what I did after Jakarta is actually, what happened after Jakarta is COVID-19. And what happened after COVID-19 is that we couldn't travel. So I was stuck in Singapore for a couple of years. We weren't allowed to travel here. I don't know if you or your audience knows the geography of Singapore, but Singapore is an island that is barely 40 kilometers by 22 kilometers. So it's a tiny island. So being here for 2 years, it was kind of a bit claustrophobic, let's say. So I was used to traveling quite a lot. So it became a little bit frustrating not being able to go abroad. But I used that time to do a couple of projects in Singapore. One was called Insula, and that's not a project I'm going to show today, but it's a project that deals with the feeling of being stuck in an island. And it's a project where I went around the perimeter of the island to photograph the coast. I just was photographing the coast. So in all the pictures, you would see the sea in the background. And it was a way for me to look at, it was almost like Robinson Crusoe looking at the sea, looking for a ship at the sea while he was trapped in Robinson Crusoe Island.
Yeah, it's a good analogy.
So yeah, I felt that kind of, I had been left behind in a not deserted island, because Singapore is anything but deserted. But anyway, like I was stranded. So I did that project. So I got a bicycle and I was cycling around Singapore and photographing. It was good for my fitness and good for making sense of these strange times. Yeah. But I'm not going to show that project, but I did another project that I think it ties very well with Jakarta, because it's a project about Singapore and how Singapore is a very controlled city, yeah? Where you could say that Jakarta is improvised, very creative in the way that people react to the city and try to find solutions. I think Singapore is more about having this systemic urban planning, that they plan everything from scratch. They have this very controlled way of expanding and thinking and interpreting what the city is and how we should be living in the city as well. So for this project that is called The Unfeasible Order of Things, I was trying to photograph this contrast with Jakarta, where Jakarta would be a candid approach, more kind of documentary and spontaneous in the way that I was photographing. In a way, improvising as I went along, just like Jakarta, the Jakartans themselves were improvising. I was improvising with my project, just walking, reacting candidly to what I was saying and doing a documentary style. In Singapore, it became more conceptual, I believe, and it was more about more careful compositions be more contrived in the way that I compose the images. Maybe reflecting this systemic urban planning that I mentioned before, and how control creates this uneasy relation between order and disorder. So that's what is called the unphysical order of things.
Is this what we're about to look at?
How much? Yeah, if you want to, yeah.
So let's take a look.
It doesn't matter how much you try. Okay, but it doesn't matter how much you try to control things. Things always find a way to get messed up at the end. That's what I think. Everything gets.
This is that.
Yeah, because
the push and pull between order and chaos. Yeah.
This is a very telling image of the times of COVID-19 and what was happening in Singapore, where they wouldn't even allow you to sit on a bench, and where people have to just put up with these limitations. But anyway, let's go into, for example, this one. So yeah, this planning that is this control in Singapore, where everything is planned, controlled, moved, and in this case, I found this photograph as I was walking through the street. I saw this tree being moved. Somebody bringing nature closest to us.
Yeah, I thought that was ironic. Yeah. It's tipped over to you. Yeah, it's. Do they mean in traffic? It's. I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's funny.
Compositions like this are more kind of conceptual, not so much always about people, but also about details, about how things are marked. What is the purpose of marking this tree? What is going to become of this tree? It's part of the plan, even little details like these are part of a master plan that they might having. So I found things like this interesting, and also things like this, again, with nature and the construction. Construction side, a fence, you're not allowed to see what is inside, but somebody's telling you what is inside through what they want you to see, or how they want you to see what they don't allow you to see with your own eye. I found that interesting. You can only experience what is at the other side of this fence because somebody places a picture in there. This is what we are creating, or this is what is going to be. We will let you know when you can see it, but not right now.
Yeah,
I like that imposition. It's almost like an imposition of outcome.
Yeah. At first, I thought it was a little cutout where you were looking through, and then I was like, "Oh no, that is not." Yeah, it took me a little bit to get my feet under. Yeah, then I saw that. I was like, "Yeah, wow."
Yeah, I like that as well. That ambiguity that you have to look twice and to realize that it's actually not a cutout.
Yeah, they got me. Yeah,
but probably when they put the picture in there, it serves that purpose, just to create a vision. This vision of idealized vision of the city.
I think that image next to the one with the improvised fence through the park, I think those sitting right next to each other would be really interesting. Anyway, do you know what I'm saying?
What image?
That the first one you showed me in the park with the see-through fence, like you can see the park, but you can't touch it. This kind of has that kind of feeling to this that. One, it's those sitting next to each other, I think would be a nice pairing. Yeah.
Yeah, they have some relation.
Yeah. You can see it, but you can't touch it. Kind of. Yeah.
And it's not to say that Singaporeans, of course, don't find places to bend the rules and to do things that they are not allowed to do in the city. But they have to go to the outskirts,
Yeah.
Where in Jakarta, anything can happen in the center of the city, right to the luxury mall, like a Gucci kind of Prada and all these big European brands. And next to it, it could be somebody improvising a little coffee shop made of concrete shapes. In Singapore, people still improvise, like these people doing these model cars, but they have to go up the outskirts of the city where they can bend these rules.
Sure.
So there are places where they can bend rules, but it's in places that are less regulated because they are away from the city center.
That looks fun, actually.
So, yeah. I also, maybe this image as well that tells a story about the games, another fence that you're not allowed, a very fence made of 2 pieces of string, and 2 notices in there that doesn't allow you to go, doesn't allow you to trespass. And I like that kind of the yellow line that is almost telling you, that this is it, don't go beyond, this is not paved now, this is not for you, this is not, you need to turn around. So again, that kind of control and this systemic control of the city and where you're allowed to go, where you're not allowed to go, the places that the yellow lines that you shouldn't cross.
Were you when you said this project, was this during COVID? You were shooting this? Yeah. Were you kind of coping with that? You are like in a lot of ways, it's like you're being asked to stay indoors, but you're like looking at all these like control mechanisms. Was this like your way of kind of dealing with that? You're like, oh, there's another fence here, there's another fence here, there's a, you know what I mean? There's these. Was this like kind of your way of?
The fences are definitely were erected because of COVID-19, like this one. Yeah, this was very COVID-19 a sign of COVID-19. I think maybe all over the world, places where you couldn't sit, they prevented socializing and they prevented human contact and all this. But this one that I show you later on, actually, this one is something that is nothing to do with COVID-19, but of course it could be reflected in the signs of the times.
Oh yeah,
of course.
That sense of control, even though it was like people were reacting in that way, there's still residues of it everywhere. There are some people that were like, well, we really liked that policy, so they keep it. And so, like, you feel like?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Do you feel like that's some of what you're seeing in that next image there you just showed me was kind of the residue of
this one,
the previous one?
No, I think this is something. This one, at least, is something that is quite. I think every city there are places where you can go and you cannot go. There's always limits.
Yeah.
There are places that might be deemed to be dangerous, or I don't know. I don't know
private property.
Why?
Yeah.
The notice there is a notice: do not stray off the trail. So they don't actually allow you to go into that place. Wow. But the reason, I'm not too sure why. But what I found interesting is the yellow line and the limits of what is permissible and the control that is exerted in us of the places where we are allowed to go, the places, the very strong planning of the city, as opposed to Jakarta, that is a place that, invites where the regulations might be there, but there's not so much control or there's not so much enforcement. In Singapore, it's the opposite. enforcement is very much part of Singapore. You cannot bend the rules in Singapore. You have to, you will get into trouble.
What a contrast.
So, so it was, I think it was, again, as I said, like Jakarta is more like a candid approach of my photography, and I was doing this kind of documentary style, and just looking and reacting to what people were doing. Maybe in this project, although I do photograph people in this project, it's more kind of conceptual in the case that the images are more about these limits or these places where you should, or the opposite, these places where you should be going, like in this case, like just to make sure that you know where to go, that all those, I find those 3 arrows painted in there quite fascinating.
I also enjoy the cones too. The cones on each step. Yeah. I think that's interesting.
So it's a very, it's a very active way of trying to organize, maybe organize chaos. Try to, because there's something happening in this place. They're doing repairs, but they're still trying to organize it in a way that is safe. You know where to go, you know how to get from A to B. They make sure that you know what is the path. There's that kind of organization of these measures that they place in order for us to follow the planning that is being placed there by other people, by planners. But not just 3 arrows, another one here, another one here. It's, how many arrows do I need to see in order to know where to go? I found this quite interesting when I saw it. I like this even in something that appears to be out of control. There's a kind of underground level that we don't even know what is happening. There's this hatch. Where is this hatch going? I found it quite interesting as that kind of hidden layers in the city that might be what is down there. What is the systems that are down there that we don't know about?
How do you see this making its way into the world? Do you see this as another book, or do you think in books, or do you think in exhibition? What is your process when you think about this stuff? Are you just kind of shooting?
My main purpose is to shoot. It's something that keeps me sane, and it's something that I enjoy. Of course, for me, publication is a lot more important than exhibitions.
Sure.
Like exhibition is so caring. Very. I like the legacy of a book. Like, a book is something that remains. That is something that stays. Where exhibition is something that comes and goes.
Sure.
There's something very beautiful about seeing big prints on the wall, of course.
Of course.
But it's a kind of big splash, like a big splash of images on the wall that's flashing upon, it's here and then gone tomorrow. Where I like the idea that a book is something that is going to remain on somebody's shelf, and also the intimacy of looking at pictures in a book, that kind of intimate relation.
Yeah. And you can also sequence them, and
I see my work in books.
Yeah, that's interesting. But you can also then sequence them, and it's like listening to your story. I can almost see a sequence, and I even started to pair some together.
It's very hard to do.
Yeah, it is hard.
Yeah, it's very hard to do.
Yeah,
it's very hard. Something I try to teach to my students, but I find quite hard myself as well. Sequencing.
I think it's, I hear that a lot. Some people say it's hard for me to do my own work, but other people have it, like helping students or helping other people, or friends that do this kind of stuff.
The thing is that you can get so caught up in methods, like doing by theme or do it by chronologically.
Of course.
It can become quite contrived. And sometimes it's better just to be a little bit more impulsive.
Yeah, Yeah, almost as if
improvise more like people in Jakarta, just do a more improvised approach to maybe more by feeling or by gut,
yeah, well, like the images came, like the exact same way you photograph them. And what's interesting is when you're trying to, and this is what I think in the books that I enjoy the most, or when the idea is still there all the way through, and I can feel it. And when I can feel the over categorization and the order to it, I kind of sometimes lose the story, I'm more get stuck in the aesthetic and I forget why I'm looking at the
Exactly.
Yeah. I totally agree with you.
It can be distracting.
Yeah, I'm like, I love the organization, but man,
it's like watching a magician doing a trick.
Yeah,
You know the trick. You've seen the trick.
Exactly.
So that kind of takes away from the wonder.
Yeah. It's like films have that feeling too. It's like when you can predict the ending of it because you've seen this film over and over again. It's kind of I think this is why people have superhero fatigue. With the Marvel movies, it's like, okay, I've seen this formula already. Yeah, 25 times. Thank you.
I always talk with my wife about it. It's what is the appeal of having a group of people punching each other when they cannot get hurt
over and over again. Yeah. I think there's. I think we're. Hopefully we move into another period of time where we start seeing good movies again with characters with flaws. The 90s were awesome. 80s were awesome for that kind of kind of movie. Even early 2000s had a little bit of that.
I saw a great movie yesterday.
You did?
American Fiction, I think it was called. American Fiction.
No, I don't know this.
I recommend it.
Oh, okay.
It's in Netflix.
Oh, that's awesome. So let's jump into that Singapore project that you had mentioned, and we'll kind of go from there.
I'm gonna do it maybe quickly, this one. Okay, so this is a project called Spare Time that I did in Singapore. I'm gonna show you. I'm not gonna show many pictures of this, but there are leisure activities in Singapore and done with very long exposure. So it will be from, I think this one was 5 seconds to long exposures to be daytime. Yeah, so it would be 5 seconds to 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So neutral density filter, very long exposure. Do you know what a neutral density filter is?
Of course.
It's almost like, for people who don't know, which I'm sure everybody knows what it's like, sunglasses for your lenses.
Yeah.
So it
cuts the light.
It darkens the light, it cuts out the light that comes through the lens.
Allows you to do long exposures like this during the day. Yeah.
During the day that otherwise you wouldn't be able to. So I was photographing these people doing leisure activities around Singapore. There are things here that may be related to commodification of leisure. Maybe, I think because the city remains sharp and it remains stable, but people become fussy. It's almost like making a critique about the environment becomes solid, but people are insubstantial in this environment. They're not that important. The presence of people is temporal as well. Like people come and go, but the places remain. So it's something that is maybe emphasized in these images as well. But I think it's also a project where I try to go back to those limitations of photography that I mentioned at the beginning. And I think I find interesting that decisive moment. The decisive moment when you take a picture where everything is in place, the Cartier-Bresson moment where something is happening in the somebody's doing something, or they're shifting the way in a particular manner, or there's a gesture, something that makes the picture work. Yeah? But in this case, because the exposures are so long, this decisive moments become invisible as well. Like maybe there could be like 3, 4, 5, 10 decisive moments in this 2-minute exposure, but they will never be seen. They are lost in this long exposure. And I like that kind of limitation of time, what time can do to a photograph. Sometimes freeze it into a decisive moment or slow it down to everything becomes not almost like there's not a moment in here that is more important than the rest. Yeah. Because we don't get to see that freezing of the time. So yeah, I think it's a project that I'm still working on it. So it's not finished, but maybe it's a project that makes a comment about the priorities, how the city has priorities in maybe work and commerce rather than leisure. But cities are sometimes prioritize as machines of commodity. Commodification of even leisure becomes a commodity itself.
You have a in your 2 previous projects, people in their influence are very, very prevalent. When you talk about the limitations, I can almost see the people putting up the fences and making the arrows and creating the control of an environment. I see the people improvising. You even see them sitting here. But it's like now you're in this work, you're bringing the people forward and not the city forward now. You're bringing these environments forward. You're almost eliminating the people and showing the subject a little bit more focused on the city itself. And, it reminds me of that, Jay. You know what I mean? Those early photographs of Paris. He's doing long exposures. That's why you don't see anybody in the picture. You just can't capture them at all. And so you get these, and you have these really empty photographs of Paris and everyone knows it's not empty, and everyone knows that you're like, how did you do that? And that's just the limitation of the photograph itself. But what it does, and I think is what's really interesting, is you bring the environment forward, because in every photograph, if a person's in it, everybody looks at the person, period. That's just, what are they doing? And here you're bringing it forward. Do you think that is kind of what's happening here? You say it's not done, and do you think that's kind of the reason you're still trying to make your way through it? Or
I think I'm trying to make a comment about how sometimes photography is unable to capture those complexities, of human experiences. Because it's like, it's a limitation of photography, human experiences are very complex.
Yeah, they are.
Sometimes maybe in this project, I'm just giving in and say, it's rather than trying and just showing how difficult it can be by doing this. Maybe it's almost like I'm trying to project that kind of frustration in trying to capture those complexities, and sometimes it's not easy.
It's true. It's interesting. We'll keep going. I'm kind of curious.
So I'm just going to show some of these images. I'm just going to show. This one is called Sunday Morning, and it's the traffic that people going to. I imagine, I am imagining that people going to. It's a very busy road where people are traveling from A to B on a Sunday, which I suppose they are going to some kind of family time or dinner or breakfast. I think it was in the morning, or going for some kind of leisure activity on a Sunday. So it's just the flow of traffic that we don't see, almost like we don't know where they're going. This one that we saw before, this is the district business of Singapore. The CBD is called, yes, Central Business District, I believe, is what it stands for. And also the culture and how culture becomes a commodity itself of part of tourism. Other activities like this, commercial activities like this is an Apple store in Singapore.
That's amazing.
That's the flagship. Yeah, Singapore is it's got quite a few architectural gems. But yeah, there's lots of people crossing this bridge, and again, nobody seems to be reflected in the photograph. You see them if you look at the image carefully and closely. You see these ghostly images, especially around this area. You will see ghostly images, and inside the shop as well. But this is like a 2 or 3 minute exposure.
Wow!
So the corporation, Sharp, the commerce and the areas of commerce are sharp and clear, but people transiting these spaces are rendered insubstantial, maybe not important. They come and go, we come and go.
It's fascinating.
So spare time. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I think, maybe this one.
I think it's I can see the common evolution within your visual language, which gets me curious about where you're going right now, or what you had done now currently. Let's move to that next project, because I have some questions about that. You started to work with your archive of images, and you started to experiment. Yes. So talk to me a little bit about this.
Okay. So we are going back to the project I did in Jakarta in here. But I think before talking about the project, I'm doing a couple of projects again, one in AI projects, one Jakarta, and the other one is Singapore. Actually, the one in Singapore is going to be published as a book soon, in the next few months, I believe. I actually have like a little dummy of the book here, but because it's still in the editing process and all that, I probably won't show it today, but maybe another time. But so the one in Singapore is I'm not gonna discuss that one now, but this one in Jakarta, these are images created by AI, the big images, the bleeding images taking the whole of the spread on the left is an AI image that is being created by training the system with some of the images I took in Jakarta in 2016. So remember the project in Jakarta that we discussed before is Jakarta Modest Interventions and Minor Improvisations, where this project now done by AI is Jakarta Improvised and Intervened. I think we all have been taking, some of us more than others, but I became quite fascinated by AI. I don't think we can call it photography. It's not photography, because it's photography is about light. It's I suppose AI images. I don't know what to call it. We need to find. I suppose there's a name already.
Well, there's someone that called it promptography. That's what they called it.
Promptography.
I thought that was a really apt name, and it was Boris Aldagson. He started to get recognized because he won a photo competition at the Sony photo competition in digital art, and he calls it promptography, and I thought that was an apt name for it.
I think as well, because, as photography is painting with light, now we are painting with prompts.
Yeah.
I
Words.
think it's getting a little bit dark here. Sorry, it's getting to nighttime. I think the light is shifting a little bit.
Yeah, it's morning here in Paris and nighttime where you are. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let me see my stuff. Okay, so photography is quite a good name. So we can call it that. So yeah, I was training the system with my images. That again is about a city that people improvise and create and all that. And I thought, it would be interesting to get AI to be a meeting place for this human machine and this, at the beginning, I thought of these images like almost to be improvisations and self by the AI, which I'm not too sure that is the right word, to be honest. But
they're
you know
not
what I mean?
well.
It's kind of they're generated more than improvised.
Yeah, and to me, it's like improvisation is very human, And with these, it's actually making informed decisions, that are, and it has a strategy because the algorithm does have a strategy. So yeah, I can see why you're struggling with that. But it feels improvised to us, though, I think, because we're throwing it in there and it's giving us something back, and we're getting what we get, so it feels improvised.
Also because it's very difficult to control what you
100%. Yeah, it is true.
You can give very, very precise prompts, but the result is hardly ever what you expected it to be.
Yeah.
Like there's a sense of, although it might not be, because I know this is an algorithm, it's a bias. It's a bias that is created by the machine by finding images that already exist and tries to generate something out of a bank of images that already exist. I think that's the way it works. But still, for us, this prompt and what we get out of the prompt sometimes to be this kind of, if not improvised, at least imprecise and very difficult to predict. Yeah, definitely unpredictable. Very unpredictable.
I think that I like that word. I like that word. There's this
I like
control we have with our words, when we write a prompt. And
you have to give up some of the control when you're doing AI.
And that's why it feels improvised. And so because you're kind of working with what you get, that's it. But you're trying to guide it a little bit too by feeding it an inspiration, which I think is also an interesting twist. Yeah. Because
that spirit of improvisation not improvisation, this unexpected. Jakarta for me is quite a place of surprises. Like, you turn every corner that you turn, you find things that you didn't expect. And I think that ties very well with what we talked about AI now, that there's also this sense of surprise that you never know exactly what you're going to get when you write these prompts. So I thought of experimenting with this, and what I did is, the way the images have been presented is my images with the images that AI created. I like this collaboration between the AI and the human, and I think it's a good way to start exploring these new tools that have become available to us. I think there's lots of people who find them quite I think there's lots of people who seems to be a little bit scared by these changes, but I think there are lots of opportunities to be exploited in here as well. So I'm just trying to explore the possibilities of this technology, and I think this project is part of that exploration.
I had
to show you some of the
previous conversation.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah, I had a previous conversation with a photographer who got put onto an assignment where he was put into Italy, and they went to a rock quarry or a stone quarry, a marble quarry, where all the stones all the marble that was used in Michelangelo and some of these others to make their great sculptures were being made, but the machines now are actually carving these things. And so there's this amazing conversation about AI, and he told me a story, and I bring this up because he said there was this interesting story someone told him, and I haven't verified this, but I think it's interesting, is that there were people that were scared of writing because people were just always told stories, to each other, and you remembered those stories, and they were told through language. But when writing came around, everyone was like against it and afraid of it, because they were afraid that if we started, keeping track of things and making books and scrolls and stuff, that we would forget everything, and we would have no reason to remember anything. And so people were afraid of that at that time. And so I think with any major shift, we feel it. We know, we intuitively feel it. And so that initial bit of fear is the unknown. It's like, oh my gosh, this has potential. Like, where is this going to go? And I think that's what people are reacting to when it comes to AI. But that was an interesting conversation. You should check that one out if you haven't yet. It was Caleb Stein. He talks about that. There's also a clip on my channel. But continue with this, because I quite enjoy these, and I love the marriage between the two here.
Yeah, so it was a meeting between this revisiting the city again. It was an opportunity to revisit the city through AI, and so I created all these different all these images that allowed me to revisit the city without setting a foot in there. Yeah, I found it quite interesting to as an exploration. So yeah, these are the images.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, I find them that is still kind of trying to make sense of them in a way, because I like that the unexpected. I like the unexpected value that AI has at the moment, and I think that what has attracted me to do this with this particular project, because I thought it was quite matching with what I lived in the city in 2016, and the character of Jakarta itself as a very unexpected place.
So it's kind of capturing that that same feeling you were having, and I think that's interesting too. And if anybody was curious how to use AI in this, in a very, I know you don't like this word, but in an artistic way, and how to blend it with your work, this is how to do it. This is how to do it, because it still like ties to your original idea. You're experimenting with a tool. What is the text here? I can't read it on my screen here. Is this a draft of a book that you're making?
No, that is the prompt.
Okay, so you're doing the prompt.
I can read it for you. I'll read this one for you if you want to listen. Sure. Generate a high-quality photograph of a street scene in Jakarta that shows a tin-foil, precarious, improvised, and informal, small, one-level building that is being used as a bear shop. And then I continue. So it's a very descriptive. I just described what I saw in my photograph as a prompt to later let the AI to improvise, or I know it's not the best word to use, but to improvise these images.
That's so I'm kind of curious about this layout. Is this right now this looks like you're showing me a spread of a book.
Yeah.
Are you making a book right now?
Yeah. I was thinking about it.
It would be awesome.
Was a layout. This was a layout for a book, but I thought it's actually using my website like this, and I like it because I like for the images and the prompts to be seen together. Because I think the work is not my work. It's not the AI. It's everything. The creation is in everything. It's in the traditional photography. It's in the promptography, and in the prompt itself. So everything is included as an image. As a single image to look at the same time. I think that's part of the way that I thought it was apt for this project to be.
But it's so easy for an image. We talk about, like, especially photographs. You're so proud when one image can stand alone and it encompasses your entire idea. You can just put it on a wall, print it in a book. You can look at it and it can stand alone. But what I like about you doing this layout is that I'm seeing you. And I enjoy that because AI sometimes feels so prepared, and stale in some ways. And if you haven't noticed social media lately, you're just surrounded by AI images now. You can tell that they are.
Yeah, immediately.
Because I told you this before we started, and some of my audience might already know this, but my research was in AI, so I looked at thousands of these things, and now I can tell what is real and what isn't, and it's actually quite concerning to me. But
what Patrick is now, this technology is emerging now. Imagine what is this going to be, what kind of images we're going to be getting in 1 year, 2 years time.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at the first images produced by Midjourney 2 years ago.
Oh yeah.
They were like mashed up faces and nothing photographic. And now
early game.
A huge jump, I think the version 5 was used for this project, version 5. But now
Midjourney. I was going to ask you because this looks like Midjourney 5, but and the reason is because you can see around the tree, in the trees and the leaves, they kind of have a haziness to them, but the progress.
Isn't that interesting that we'll be able to identify the versions?
Yeah,
and that we can actually still produce. We still can, if we want to, we can still produce images with version 1.
Yeah, and I can tell you too. I can tell you too. DALL-E too. I can tell if it's made in DALL-E as well, and I can also tell you too the early GAN models. I can tell you those, just because you get in this world. It's. I don't know if you can tell a difference between Canon and Nikon, but there was a time when you could, in the final images. I could tell if you're a Canon shooter or a Nikon or whatever, but it's kind of going to be the same type of thing. You can tell a little bit by it. Now, what I like about what you're doing here is it's really easy to get lost in the tech, but you've done I think what I really enjoy, a nice job of maintaining your curiosity that's come through your photography and the kind of the original idea and putting them together with the same spirit. It's like AI isn't forward here. It is, but it isn't. I like it. I love that.
But it's like, it's like any type of technology, they have a purpose, we have to find those purposes. And if you are somebody who does photography to tell stories, and you have a new tool where you can use to further this ability to tell stories, why not to use it? I think
yes,
it's another tool. It's another tool. It's another way. It's another weapon in our arsenal of possibilities when we make images. And,
I wrote a paper called Ways of Seeing, and in it I came to that conclusion, that exact conclusion. And it is a difference. It is a difference in the way you make. You're still making an image. You're still making a square. You still have a subject matter. You're still using the same kind of visual language. They have that in common. But one comes from experiencing the world and pointing your camera at something for a perspective. And the other one comes from an internal seeing. And it comes from your inside. You're chasing an image through this machine, and you're getting it to work. And, some people, like, they start to think AI is this thing that delivers an image just based off of your prompt. But as you have come to find out, it is limited just like a camera is, and it's not going to give you exactly what you want right away. And some people turn right there. Oh, this isn't going to give me what I want. It's easier to go and get it with a camera. But me, I got so obsessed with seeing if I could get it that I would go through hundreds of iterations in order to get exactly what it is that I was looking for. And that process sometimes would take days. Working the prompt. Seeds, you can tie things to seeds.
You have
No.
If you have a very specific thing you want to get, it's not easy. But what I think my take from AI, and by thinking about AI that I've been doing quite a lot, and this is going to sound strange, but I think in the future, there's going to be a revival. There's going to be like a nostalgia for the real. We're always going to have this connection to the real. We always will need real stories of real people, of real communities.
I totally agree with you. And this is the reason I remember earlier when I said that camera that you have is worth a lot of money. We're starting to see a little bit of that reaction because of social media. Yes. We can tell it's like this fabricated reality, and people just want to feel the tangible again. And
reaction. There's going to be a reaction. There are stories that cannot be told with AI because you need that connection to the real subject matter. I cannot tell you a story of a community in, I don't know, living in the Alps or whatever. I'm just making something up. If I don't go there with a camera to show you the real people that form part of that community. Like these pictures of Jakarta, they don't tell me anything about, they don't tell me the real issues of Jakarta. They're telling me lots of these images are also biases that AI has for different cultures as well.
That's
because
so true.
AI is not making the images. We are making the images. We are the ones who produce the bank of images that the AI is interpreting and creating images from. So, AI is just almost like a screen where we are projecting, or a mirror, more than a screen, a mirror where we are seeing ourselves. We are seeing what we haven't given.
To your point there too, and it points to another limitation that AI has is it's always looking at an image from a past perspective. It's never looking at the now, ever.
Yeah.
It can't.
Yes.
It has to be trained. It has to be taught. Mm-hmm. And so anytime you get AI to make you an image, it's coming from a perspective of the past. And so this will challenge, I think, what we think about. You talk about this tangible for the real, but what is real, right? I think it's perspective in some ways, but I think there's this move to be more present. I think, stop chasing what used to be and start being where you are now. It because AI is limited based off of what it already knows, and what we already know is what we knew back then. It has nothing to do with what we're learning now. My final question, it's related to an interview that you had done, and you had said something, and it ties back to what we just talked about. And you said photography's mission to reflect realities, connect humans, and uphold its credibility matters more than ever. And so, like, you wrote that, and I think I really wanted to unpack this idea of reflecting realities. What do you mean by that? Reflect realities.
I think that was in relation to AI. Yeah. And that's exactly what I was saying before, that because AI is causing all this anxiety about what is real, what is not, about fake news, about all this. We are going to try to find and to foster connections with, with the tangible, with the things that are, the things that we can, the things that we believe are real for us. And I know this can become very philosophical, what is real, what is not. But what I mean by real in terms of photography is real photography, not promptography. I'm talking about photographing real subjects, real people, real cities, real circumstances, real moments that the indexicality of photography. That's what I mean. I think that's going to become more important in the future. As AI becomes more widespread, there would also be a higher value in connecting to real people, real places, real communities, and to tell real stories. And again, I say what I mean by real is I mean something that was photographed from photons, from light.
So
it's lexical, something that existed.
I love that because I know we have a lot of photographers that follow this show and people that work in images. And if you were concerned about artificial intelligence and encroaching into your world, this should inspire you. So especially two people, I studied it and you're working with it and you're even teaching it, I think, this year. Which I think is...
I'm teaching it to my students. One of the things is I'm teaching my students to be collaborators.
Yeah.
AI as a collaborator, as an asset.
Yeah.
And I think we should be concerned, but we shouldn't be scared. I think we should be alert, very alert, and to find opportunities. When there's change, there's also it's a good moment to find new opportunities as well.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree. So I'm going to give you my final question, and this is the one I ask everyone, and it is basically a lot of people follow us that are photographers and that are trying to make their way as makers themselves. Do you have any advice for anybody out there that wants to be a maker or wants to do photography or wants to be creative in this field?
I think so. It's quite simple, but and I think it's probably been said by other people before. But first of all, you need to be very curious, and you need to have an interest beyond photography. Photography is just the means to an end. What you need to find is that you want to photograph. That is what is interests you. Is what is that? Could be sociology, it could be food photography, it could be whatever it is. Doesn't need to be anything grand. But what is the subject that you want to photograph? That is the key question. If you're already interested in cameras, then photography as a media is not going to be very productive.
It's not enough.
Be curious.
Yeah.
Learn. Ask questions. Try to answer those questions with photography. That is my advice to somebody trying to get into photography.
Well, I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much for coming on today. I really, really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Patrick. I enjoyed it too. It went by really quickly. So
I tell everybody that. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. And
All
how
the
can
best.
people connect with you? How can people connect with you?
You can go to my website, which is my name, IsidroRamirez.net. Or I've got an Instagram, Isidro Ramirez, EH for photography.
Okay, perfect.
So
All right.
I don't have Twitter, I don't have Facebook or anything else.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. And to everyone that's made it this far, thank you so much for joining us on the Urbanaut Podcast. If you like today's show, consider liking, sharing, and commenting down below. And as always, if you want to support content like this, join our patreon.com page and help us out there. That's how you can help us bring more great interviews to you. And as always, we'll see you next time.